Hey, this is Instructor Paul, and in this lecture, we'll be creating a one-time backup of our domain controller ITFDC01. So, in the previous lecture, we installed the Windows Backup feature, so we'll go ahead and launch that now if you don't already have it up by clicking Tools and scrolling to the bottom and choosing Windows Server Backup. So, what I'm going to do now is left-click on Local Backup. I'm just going to maximize the screen just to make it a little bit easier for you guys to view. And I'm going to right click on local backup and I'm going to choose backup once. We could also choose backup once here on the right hand side of the screen, and we can view any relevant messages, when our last backup, next backup, if we're running scheduled tasks and things like that. Okay, so we'll right click and we'll choose backup once. Okay, so since we choose backup once, we can't choose scheduled backup options since we haven't created any scheduling. And we're going to go with different options. Let me just close this little pop-up here. And I'm going to click Next. So we have to decide what type of backup we want to do, full server or custom. I recommend that you do full server, but if we wanted, we could choose custom, and it adds some additional options here on the left side of the screen. So if I click Next, we could add different items of what we want to back up. So I could say, the C drive, just back up the logs directory for you. Or I could back up particular logs if I'd like. But I'm going to click Cancel, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say Full Server Backup. Okay, and then I'll click Next. Okay, so now I can choose whether I want to back up to a local drive or a remote shared folder. Now this says local disk D or a CD drive E. If I open Folder Explorer here and I go to this PC, I can see that I have the C drive, which I cannot choose as a backup option. I have the D drive, which is actually my disk, and there's no E drive. This is just examples. So I don't have an extra hard drive or an additional hard drive like, a D drive or, an extra data drive that I could back up to. So what I'm going to do is say remote shared folder, and I'll click Next. So now I need to specify the location of that server, and I'm going to back up directly onto this server. Generally, that's a bad idea. You'd want to send your backups to a server other than the server that you're running the backup on, because if this server crashes, then I'm also going to lose the backups that are stored on this server. Does that make sense? So for simplicity's sake, I'm not going to build a new backup server. You could do that if you'd like, but I'm just going to make a new folder here on the C drive, and we'll call this backups. And I'm going to right click and make this a share drive. So if I right click and choose properties, go to sharing, hit share, and I'll make administrators read write, hit share again. All right, so here's the path, ITFDC01 /backups. So if I click close, I can now go on the top of my Windows Explorer and type in ITFDC01 /backups. Okay, and this is our backup directory. So I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to paste this into the location folder here. So now under access control, we could choose to either not inherit or inherit the options, or inherit the permissions rather. So if we do not inherit, it says right here, this option makes backup accessible only for the user who created the backup basically. So I'm running under the administrator account. That means only the administrator user would be able to access it. Or we could inherit the permissions of the backup folder, which we specified when we created this folder. So if I let me go to this PC really quick, I can show you. If I go to backups, right click, choose properties, sharing, click advanced sharing, click permissions, and we have everyone and administrators. Okay. And we can also view that under share. So we have the administrators group. These guys can read write. So we could basically, all of our backup files are going to inherit these permissions. Okay. So I'm going to back out of this, go back to my wizard, and I'm just going to leave that at that option, and I'll click next. And it's going to say, give us a confirmation, backup of the items below will now be created and saved in the specified destination. So ITFDC01 /backups. And here is what we're going to be backing up. So C drive, system reserve, system state, and bare metal recovery. So if we click on backup, and it's think and spin for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and open the Folder Explorer also. You'll notice that it said it was going to be 15 gigabytes, but you'll notice our hard drive is 111 gigabytes. And the reason for this is that the backups are actually compressed. Okay, so you might be wondering, why is it 111 gig here, but the backup's only going to take up 15 gig? It's just because they're compressed. So if I go under backups, we can see Windows Image Backup. I can expand that, look at ITFDC01, etc. So what's going to happen is we're just going to wait for this installation or this backup to finish. We can see it's transferred almost a gigabyte. It's going to transfer a total of 15 gigabytes. We can also see, the process of each item. It's 8% done, 9% done with the C drive. Then it's going to go to system state and bare metal recovery. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this finish out. We'll wait for this to finish, and then we'll be ready to continue on to the next lecture.